It's that time again for the assault on your ears we call Lower Dorks, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. I'm Aaron, and with me is Stavros. Well, Stavros, why don't you tell the good folks at home what we're drinking? You know, tell the bad folks too. You know, just tell everybody. Tell all the folks.
I will tell the folks, good and bad. But yes, we are drinking Old Smoky Tennessee whiskey, mango habanero flavored. And I have to say, of all of the whiskeys that you've forced me to try so far, this one is easily the best. It smells good. It tastes good. Even I'm not specifically a whiskey man, but I've got to say I'm giving this a big thumbs up so far.
I would drink this even if it wasn't alcoholic. I mean, it's sweet, it's spicy, it's got bite, but it goes down smooth. It is just fantastic. Old Smoky makes a wide range of flavored whiskeys. But even their baseline whiskey is pretty good. Not only is it good in its own right, but it also makes a fantastic mixer. Highly recommend the brand.
All right. Good to hear.
So tonight, along with our drink, we're watching episode 2 of season 2, Kayshon, His Eyes Open. This was written by Chris Kula, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and directed by Kim Arndt. Interesting thing I noticed about the director that shared in common with last episode's director, he is a very prodigious storyboard director, or storyboard artist. He does have directing credits and writing credits under his belt. It's just interesting that that is like a common trend. I don't know the industry, but I'm wondering if that's a common career path.
It sounds like it's got to be. Like,
Yeah.
this is the second time. I mean, we're 2 for 2 so far for storyboard artists being directors, so there's something there.
Yep, and he has a really interesting career. You know, the first place that I would recognize him from, he did work on Saturday Night Live when they were doing their animated segments. TV Funhouse was the name of the company, I believe.
Okay.
But he also did a bit of work in the heyday of MTV animation, or what some people would call MTV animation's heyday. Depending on who you ask, it's either late 90s, early 2000s. He worked on the spinoff that was spun pretty far out of Beavis and Butthead, the show Daria.
Oh.
He also worked on Celebrity Deathmatch, of all things. Talk about a pretty out there reference. Then, like a lot of the other producers and writers, he did a bunch of work. He did a bunch of animation work for Cartoon Network. What I know him from is Adult Swim, where he did do some episodes of the Venture Brothers. He worked a lot on the show Super Jail, which I did not enjoy one bit of. But, you know, it had its fan base. Beyond that, there's nothing really that leaps out to me. Not sure if you're familiar with too much of his past work at all.
Yeah, not really. I'm getting educated right now.
Interestingly, Chris Kula, the writer, has not a lot of credits that I am too familiar with. He did do a bunch of executive producing on he was an executive producer on the last season of Star Trek Lower Decks.
Oh.
Yeah, he wrote the Klingon Diplomat episode as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, definitely has a very noticeable style of humor that as soon as I saw that writing credit, I was just like, this makes sense.
You know, this show has a lot of EPs and production level people that are also doing writing. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. You know what, though? I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're going to have executive meddling, you want it to be people who, you know, are...
know what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, well, shall we move on to talk about the episode itself?
You know what? I think we've talked about it enough. Let's call it a night.
We're just going to sign off now.
No, so why don't you tell us what this episode was about?
Yes, well, let me give you the summary, the synopsis. When Mariner, Tendi, and Rutherford join Jet Manhaver and Lieutenant Kayshon, the Cerritos' new chief of security, to clear out a collector ship, things get heated when Kayshon is turned into a puppet, and Jet and Mariner butt heads about command of the away mission. Meanwhile, Boimler suffers the most Boimler fate possible when helping the crew of the Titan deal with the Pakled threat. He gets himself transporter duplicated, demoted, and then sent back to the Cerritos.
Well, he also, you know, becomes Riker's new best friend, too, so... You win
know what?
some,
It depends on...
lose some at the same time?
That's right. Depends on if you think the guy that's still on the Titan is our Boimler or not.
Yeah,
he's William now.
We'll get to that, I think.
Yes, indeed.
So, we ready to talk about this episode?
I think so. Let's get the show on the road.
So, obviously, the cold open. A little Starship Troopers action with communal showers.
Indeed. The first time we've seen sonic showers on screen, I think.
No,
unless
actually.
It's popped up somewhere else.
I'm pretty sure that they've shown up in a couple of the series. The one I remember most was in Voyager, when B'Elanna Torres had a sonic shower malfunction while she was using it. I remember the scene vividly because I was a teenage boy at the time.
Imagine that.
But yeah, so first time we've definitely seen a communal shower. Unfortunately, this scene, like, Jet kind of seems like a bit of a dick, and Mariner's back to being insufferable. So, not sure.
It just to expand it from the cold open. Well, first of all, I love this cold open just because the turning up the frequency of the sonic showers was just hilarious. I thought it was well done.
It was a great exchange.
But so everyone's like, "I'm clean. I'm out of here." But the difference between Mariner and Jet, I mean, it expands into a lot of the rest of the episodes, and it's a lot of he kind of calls Mariner out on just being a rebel just because she can be one, and she calls him by the book just because he doesn't want to be a rebel, and they kind of sort through that by the end. And I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves here because we're just talking about the cold open, but as a conflict that extends in through the rest of the episode, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And it does kind of get resolved by the end.
Yeah, and it's a great new character introduction as he becomes a part of the core team on board the Cerritos.
Yeah, they're still doing this thing that we talked about before where they take these minor characters and they just expand their roles greatly, which is kind of cool, actually, to see.
I feel like that was not intended for this gentleman, as he starts with getting a demotion.
Should we talk about that now?
You know what, we might as well, because, you know what? Yeah, it comes back at the end of the episode, but it is the Corn Kernel demotion.
So funny, like,
such
first of all, the
explanation.
First, the presence of the elote or the street corn is amazing too. But I like how they successfully retcon him into a lower rank by using the corn on the collar joke. Pretty good, pretty solid.
But that just raises a lot of questions, because we've seen other people with the wrong number of pips. Apparently, Starfleet
how many
officers
times will they use that?
Love pips. Or love corn.
I think they do.
A lot of them love pips too, but they also love corn, apparently. Not a fan myself.
Yes. No, not a fan, huh?
No, I was raised by corn, and that kind of put me off of it.
I see. You've had enough.
Had enough.
But no, totally. Like, I liked Jet. We're going to talk more about what he does in his... He kind of like is a sort of a substitute Boimler, but then also says, "I'm not Boimler," so... I enjoyed it. It was a good time having Jet back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jet, he comes off as a real D-bag for the first half of the episode.
You say that, so why is that? Because of the way he butts heads with Mariner?
Yeah, it's not that he butts heads with her. It's the way he does it. It seems like it's one thing where it's all like, hey, we have conflicting personalities, but he's just like constantly doing stuff to like mess with her, it seems like, and is constantly wanting to assert his authority while at the same time denigrating Mariner for doing the same thing. Which is actually a great dynamic. I do like it, but
I like how they immediately remove Kayshon from the away team just to get at that dynamic too. Which, you know what? I feel like we need to talk about Kayshon a little bit. Let's switch gears and talk some about Kayshon.
No, we need to not talk about this because I'm going to say things that's going to get me banned from the internet.
You know what? Maybe we should start with that. Let's start with your banning comments.
Darmok and Jalad speaking nonsense.
That's right, you didn't like that episode.
I like the concept of the episode of an alien language that's so alien it's hard to communicate with them, and they actually reference that in other episodes where like there's some side bit about diplomacy where it's like you have to speak in these very officious ways, but they're Tamarians, right?
Yes.
Their entire mode of communication, it's not laden with metaphor. It is built on metaphor. And that raises a problem for me. No society can function like that. I mean, my God, how do you build a technical manual on metaphors? You know, Andrew
they found a way.
Jennifer, when they copulated. You want me to plug the EPS conduit into the view screen? And now your bridge crew's dead. Be clear, people.
You know what? Nature finds a way. I feel like you need to accept this.
It doesn't. Language, not natural. It's a construct.
So did this affect your enjoyment of Lieutenant Kayshon here?
No, Kayshon is great. I love when he gets shot down in the bar. Fantastic scene.
Poor guy.
He's just trying to find love like the rest of the Cerritos crew.
I know. But I have to say, I enjoy. I think the setup for comedy is there, but having the him stumble over metaphors is sort of a one-trick pony for me. I want to see more. I just want to see more. I don't want him to be the one trick character.
Yeah, and especially when most of the metaphors he uses are just callbacks to the previous episode.
Right. Yeah.
But we also get a second B plot that this episode starts out with.
Yes.
Oh boy, our boy on the Titan.
Yes, let's talk about that. How do you feel about what Boimler was up to?
So I just got to comment on something. I'm glad that we still have a Boimler on the Titan because I want more of Will Riker as captain. I love the fact that after they defeat the Pakled ship, the whole crew is celebrating. They're super happy, which is something you never really see. This was a tense situation. They came out on top. Why wouldn't they celebrate? And what does he shout? That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Talk about meta. But I love the new crew members. I love how ridiculous they are. I love how they're the super hardcore, we're the tough Starfleet warriors.
Yes. In fact, I wanted to mention that because Boimler is obviously, he speaks up against their attitudes, I guess. But it's kind of set up this dichotomy between the Titan, which is badass shoot 'em up situation, and the Cerritos, or as they call it in the show, the D, which has its own set of issues calling it that, and I'm going to feel really weird calling it that, but I guess we're stuck doing it now.
I've noticed a lot of the people online are talking about this as this is a dig against, new Star Trek that's, filled with serious situation and big conflicts, and I'm like, the thing is, though, they're not talking trash about the adventures the Titan is having. It's I like these other things, too. And in the end, Boimler, even if one may or may not be true Boimler, they go both paths. They choose to be both an ensign on the Cerritos, having their weekly episodic adventures, and be the crew member on the Titan with their high-stakes action scenes.
Yes, indeed, yeah. But yeah, it just sets the episode is very deliberate about setting up the difference between the two, which is odd for them to be calling it out so specifically, even to the point where they literally split Boimler or duplicate, depending on what you think is going on, between the two. So I'm curious to see how that changes each of those characters or each Boimler.
It'll be interesting to see where we go with this. Maybe one of them will get assimilated.
I mean, they did talk about that, or they did show a tease of that in the trailers. So
Indeed,
it's definitely possible.
So I do want to comment on one thing. I watch most TV with the subtitles on, the closed captioning, and there's an interesting, weird thing that happens with the crew of the Titan. In the briefing, all the various officers are speaking, and we've heard tons of accents up to this point. And in closed captioning, they often do labels for things when people are speaking in a weird way, or they're singing, or anything like that. For whatever reason, there is one crew member of the Titan that they specifically label his speech is in a British accent. And it's all why? That's just how he speaks.
So are you watching on Paramount Plus, or are you watching on a different service?
So I actually have a Paramount Plus subscription through Amazon Prime.
Okay, interesting. So they must use the same thing, because I when I rewatched this episode in preparation for recording, I turned on the closed captions and saw that as well, and thought it was pretty hilarious.
I don't know why I find it so funny. It's just such a weird thing to throw in there.
It's how you know that the Titan is serious when it has British accented crew members.
Yes. Although you're not sure it's actually British, right? You think it may be Australian?
I was thinking about it after I mentioned that to you before we recorded. I'm not sure. He uses some slang, but maybe I'm too American. My hearing is not as sensitive, so maybe it is actually British.
I'm not great with accents to begin with, so
Yeah.
I know hillbilly, and that's about it.
But speaking of accents, we need to talk about your tentacle.
Yeah, my tentacle
so
monster from
about.
Brooklyn for some reason.
Yeah. So you were back in the trailers. You were really excited about seeing a tentacle.
I was. He's not very tentacle monstery. He's just sleazy businessman. Little disappointing.
Okay. I mean, so you were like, wow, there he is, and then he opens his mouth, and then you were sad.
Well, I don't know. A really entertaining character. I guess I shouldn't complain. There's always room for more tentacle monsters in the future.
That's true.
But hey, as long as we're segueing into that, let's talk about the collectors.
Indeed.
So obviously,
there's a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
On that ship. Yeah. The references all over the place.
Yeah, it's obviously a callback to the Most Toys from TNG, and they make a lot of references to that. I love the everyone's tried to kidnap Data.
Everyone's tried to collect Data.
Yes.
Everyone knows.
But man, we could do an entire episode on the trophy room. So, but
absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite thing that was in the trophy room, or something you specifically want to point out?
I liked that device from that TNG episode, The Game, with the that Riker gets this. That was pretty funny. I was thinking is Veritor going to try it on? Or...
Yeah, but she doesn't. She takes it off of its rack and sticks it on the paper mache head. What is that from?
I couldn't pin that one down.
That is super weird. But yeah, I loved that scene of Mariner, for whatever reason, just taking it off the rack and sticking it on something else.
Yes. Did you have a favorite item or something you liked?
You know what? Here's the weird thing. On my first watch through, I'm like, oh, that's that. And there's one moment where I'm all like, is that a fidget spinner? I'm pretty sure there's a fidget spinner in it, but on rewatch, I couldn't find it. But
there's a lot in there.
Yeah, unfortunately.
That scene was just an excuse to just throw everything you could think of from other Star Trek just in there somewhere.
Oh god, yeah, all over the place. I do wonder what the drum set is a reference to. It's got to be something.
Yeah, I don't know. There was an arcade machine in there. There's all kinds of crazy things in there.
Question is it Will Riker's trombone? If you know what I mean.
Ooh. Although it wasn't in the original throne room, but in the skeleton room, the giant Spock skeleton.
Yeah, from the animated series, Spock 2.
Yeah. Yes, Spock 2. I don't know the episode name off the top of my head, unfortunately. I was just like, do you know? Are you that kind of encyclopedia? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I mean, the fact that I barely somewhere, because it's been a while since I've seen the animated series, and I'm like, I know there's a giant Spock somewhere, and you Google it and you're like, yep, there's giant Spock, Spock 2.
You know
what the hell?
The weird thing is, I feel like this isn't the first time they've referenced that episode.
I think you're right. Yeah, they say giant Spock somewhere in a different episode.
Yeah,
right?
Did he expect to find a giant Spock when they beam down to whatever planet?
Right. Somebody just really loved that animated series reference.
Yeah, it could be. But moving on from that, so we don't spend too much time. Oh, you know what? Actually, we do got to talk about one thing.
What?
The diorama of the Excalbian battle, where he created...
Oh, yes!
Yes.
With the Lincoln skull? With the Lincoln skeleton?
Yeah, that his skull inexplicably has a beard still attached to it. Also, how did the Collector get these things off of Excalbian? And how did the Excalbian die?
Great question. We'll have to ask the Collector, but he's dead now.
Well, you know what? Way to ruin my ponderance there. I'm saying.
I'm sorry. Someone out there knows. He'll let you know soon.
Maybe. Sounds like it needs a follow-up episode. So yeah, let's not focus too much on the collection, because we could do an entire episode about it.
Before we move off of it, though, I really want to focus on the flying Roombas for just 1 second, and the fact that they can suck people to death.
What are they going to do? Suck us to death? Oh god, they're going to suck us to death! Comedy gold,
Remember
people.
we saw those in the trailer and we're like, those are like flying Roombas. And guess what?
They actually are flying Roombas.
that are sucking up dust off the skeletons.
Go figure.
Anyway, just wanted to sneak that in there.
Yeah, and that was also, there was the scene with the robotic arms that we had speculated on. We were way off on that. No robot-themed episode.
No. And in fact, the data action figures and the Tamarian action figure, or the Tamarian puppet, completely different episodes.
Yeah, completely unrelated. Yeah,
So we obviously have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, lessons learned when we do our talking about next season. Perhaps we'll shut our mouths a little more.
I find that unlikely. But.
Yeah, no. I think we'd have to give up the drink for that to happen, and it's asking a lot.
Well, what else do you want to point out? I feel like you're on a roll right now.
You know what? I'm actually going to skip over that because as the scene is going on, there's a weird meta thing happening in the background with Puppet Kaython. You notice they can't seem to decide how to carry him. In half the scenes, they're like just carrying him, like, and they don't even carry it like just like in their hand or anything, like a normal puppet or whatever. But like half the time they're carrying it like he's a baby, and the other half the time they're just like got their arms wrapped around it like he's a toddler.
Right.
Just can't decide.
I feel like it opens up questions if like you have your hand like in him as like and like operating a puppet, like where's his lower half and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think
you just don't want to use him as a puppet.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions being raised there that frankly I don't think we want to answer.
Probably not.
But anyways, I think we've kind of covered the collection a little too long. Let's slide over. We have a B plot, or is Boimler the A plot, or is...
Strangely, I think Boimler is the B plot, because there's much less time spent on him.
Yes.
But we've already talked about him a little bit. Should we talk about him getting transporter coins?
I don't want to talk about Boimler yet. I want to talk about the Titan.
Okay, the Titan.
Yes. Is that a Kelpian on the bridge?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the first officer's seat next to Riker, I'm pretty sure that's a Kelpian. Or an animated version thereof. Could be wrong, though.
I need to take a look.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't notice. It really stood out to me.
They had like a lot of crazy aliens on the bridge there, but I did not notice a Kelpian. It's not one of the ones that go on the away team.
Yeah, no, he just sits on the bridge and doesn't say a word. Probably just sizing up his crewmates to see which one he's going to eat for dinner.
So I pulled up that shot, and it looks like he's got like tendrils coming out the back of his head. I think I know which one you're talking about, but I'm not sure that's a Kelpian.
And that was it. I'm like, is this an animated attempt at a Kelpian, or is it something else that we just haven't seen before? And now watch, somebody's going to point out that I'm an idiot, and it's,
you know
Species Steve from episode 27 of season 2 of the next Enterprise.
You know what? That's why we're having this show, Aaron, so people can tell us in a friendly manner what the alien that is, because he's got black eyes and red pupils.
And I can explain to him. I misspoke. He'll have to forgive me. I'm drunk.
There you go.
But yes, the Boimler plot. You know what? I don't like the Pakleds as an alien species, but there's one thing I want to point out is they're hilarious. But something that I've noticed a change from is in the original episode where they appear, Samaritan Snare, Troy actually references that, yeah, they appear really dumb, but there's this cunning I sense in them, right? And they even, like, I think Data muses that maybe they're slow of speech, but in other regards, they're just like everybody else. Definitely wasn't what was portrayed on screen. And definitely not what's being portrayed now, but they're just being portrayed as a little too dumb for me to take them seriously.
Yeah, they're definitely accented a little bit in that way, although Riker does specifically point out in that there's like this briefing room scene where they're thinking that someone's
helping them.
The Pupper Master, yeah. Yes. So something's going on there. We don't know. That I don't know if there's been a lot of foreshadowing as far as who that what's actually going on there. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it would fit their character and what we've seen of them so far. So I want to see more for sure.
Yeah, I do want to point out some of my favorite moments from their mission is Boimler pretending to be a miner and failing miserably. I love his teammates. They're all prepared to die, and they're like, "This is why," or "This is what I signed up for." And Boimler's like, "It's not what I signed up for. I just wanted to be an explorer. And then they all go into why they signed up.
Yeah.
I joined because
Moss.
I love beaming.
Yeah.
I feel like he
So
has not
good.
read O'Brien at Work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That man should not... I'm not sure that man should have signed up for Starfleet. He's been through a lot.
But of course, they all make it out alive due to Boimler's quick thinking, and Boimler makes it out alive twice.
Yes, and I want to talk more about this transporter shenanigans that are happening here. Because obviously they make the Second Chances TNG episode reference a lot with the Thomas Riker duplicate.
And you pointed out there's actually another reference in that scene that I did not pick up on.
Ooh, well, hopefully this is what I'm talking about too. But there have been multiple times where there have been transporter duplicates. But the one I'm worried about, and the one that I'm thinking is happening, is the Kirk duplicate from the original series episode Enemy Within. And that's the one where with the dog that gets the dog with the little horns that gets transported into like the good dog and the evil dog, and then there's Kirk with there's like the good but kind of wussy Kirk, and then like the command strong but also kind of an a-hole Kirk.
Kind of an a-hole, like super rapey and violent. First thing he does when he gets on the ship is get liquored up good and plenty. Not that I can blame him for that, but I don't go stumbling around the halls of my starship and forcing myself on my subordinate.
Yeah, definitely. But the reason why I'm saying that is because they make such a big deal of the dichotomy between the Titan, which is like action pew pew new Riker time, and the Cerritos or the D, which is like exploration kind of old Riker time.
Yep.
And in the original series episode, Kirk actually... The reason why the transporter goes all janky is because the group that gets beamed up before Kirk has some kind of like weird mineral on their attire, which makes the transporter, do this weird separation thing. So you can see that they're not totally the same. Like the Boimlers, only one of them volunteers to go back to the Cerritos. One of them kind of seems like he's having a good time on the Titan, even though literally in the previous scenes he's not really having a great time and not really meshing well with their action hero crewmates and stuff like that. So I'm worried. I'm not sure. I think that it's possible the Boimler that's still on the Titan is the quote unquote evil Boimler, and then the one that got sent back to the Cerritos is might even be even more wussy Boimler. We'll see.
Here's the thing, though. I didn't really get an evil vibe from Shuttlecraft Boimler. I did, however, get a smarmy vibe. So does that mean that Boimler doesn't have a good and evil side? He has like a milk toast and smarmy side?
It could be.
Feel like that hits me right where I live. I also want to point out that when the two Boimlers meet, they instantly don't like each other. Classic.
I'm the transporter duplicate. That's so good. But that is just my hypothesis. I'm going to put it out there now. We'll see if that what ends up happening there.
So I'm going to throw my own hypothesis out there.
Okay.
Earlier in the episode, there is another callback to a DS9 episode. They reference Starbase 58, which briefly featured on a screen in the DS9 episode Whispers. That is an episode where it's an O'Brien Must Suffer episode. Right. And O'Brien was replaced by a doppelganger in the service of a alien empire. And everyone knows he's been replaced, so they all just don't trust him. And eventually it leads him on this whole quest to find out why what happened to him and why everybody doesn't trust him, and he discovers that he's a duplicate and blah, blah, blah. So my theory is that Boimler beams up, they successfully beam him up, but whoever's helping the Pakleds are able to make a copy of him while he's beaming out, and the new Titan Boimler is actually
some kind of
sleeper
replacement.
Agent.
Right.
That's my theory. I know it's a big one, or it's a long shot, but I got to do something different.
Yeah, we don't know a lot about who's pulling the strings here, so I think that is a distinct possibility.
But anyways, possibly my favorite scene in the episode, because it is so... They do an entire episode of integrating Jet into the group and having Mariner and Jet work through their differences. So they'll have a whole new group dynamic. And then in
Right.
walks Boimler. And immediately, Mariner just pushes Jet literally in the face out the way.
Is Jet going to be salty?
I think he's going to go back
a-
to being a background character.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
They spent so long building him up. I don't want to see him go like that.
I'm okay with this. I think it's a hilarious gag.
Poor Jet.
Yep.
Being ousted by Boimler of all people. I mean, you know, this man is the Kirk Sunday with Kirk sprinkles. So it's kind of strange to see Boimler just come and shove him out like that. But you know what?
Well, you know what? That's what he gets
There.
for hating on Ransom.
You know what? Everyone needs to hate on Ransom. I'm not going to penalize him for that.
Well, I guess we should raise a glass and toast to the last episode of Lower Dorks. I can't do this with you. I thought I knew you.
Yeah, I know. You know, we have to work out our differences. We need an avian counselor of some kind to come and make food references.
And puppet therapy now, apparently.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
back on the, falling action side of things, we see Kayshon getting worked on by good old Dr. Ta'ana. And
Yes.
this isn't my first guy who got turned into a doll. Is that a thing that happens regularly in Starfleet?
Great question.
I feel like puppetry should probably be illegal. Like, that just doesn't seem like something you want out there.
I mean, obviously someone's designed it and has a patent for it somewhere. So it must exist. I mean, and I guess once it exists, you need to have, the solution, the reverse puppeting. So maybe it makes sense.
And he gets back and immediately gets his game on, which apparently he's not a great player of.
No. He does his best.
Yeah, he tries.
Come on. We're rooting for you, Kayshon. Maybe you need to move off the Dharmak and Jalad and move on to a different story. Maybe that's the problem.
Yes. I was kind of hoping we were going to get like a TNG Season 1 situation where just like the Enterprise went through a series of chief engineers, we would just keep going through chief security officers. Never any explanation of what happened to the last one. They're just no longer around.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. I feel like they built him up too much to have him just rotated out, but we'll see. Come on, Kayshon. We're rooting for you.
Well, you're rooting for him. I don't really care.
Someone's rooting for you. There's at least one person rooting for you.
Yeah, there's probably 2 or 3. I know wrong opinions are commonly shared.
Oh, fighting words. I don't know about that. You know what? I'm nearing the bottom of my glass, and at least your opinion wasn't wrong about this whiskey.
Yes, and my bottle is getting a little empty, and so I guess that means you know what we got to do. Call it a night.
Indeed.
So, as always, you can catch us again next week for our review of Episode 3. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at Lower Dorks, or, if you're so desperate for attention, you can send up a signal flare in the colors of the rainbow, and Stavros will come running to your call.
Wow. It better be really strong flares, or I better live really close to you. But I'll come check it out.